Good afternoon. This is Bhandari of TalkCondo, and today we're joined by two very special guests. We're joined by Mark Reeves, co-founder of Urban Capital, and John Anderton, of the VP of Rogers Private Companies. And today we're here to talk about a very, very exciting project in Mississauga called M City Condominiums. So first of all, thank you very much for your time and allowing us to chat with you today.
Thank you.
First thing I want to speak to you about is the site itself. The site itself has been in the Rogers family now for decades.
Since the 60s, yes.
Since the 60s, so it was bought a long time ago. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what the site was originally planned for and how it evolved into what we have today.
Well, this is part of a much larger landholding that the founder of Rogers Communications, Ted Rogers, bought in the 60s. It was originally a 30-hectare site in Mississauga, largely farmland. And over a number of years, that was subdivided, serviced, and sold off to single-family home builders. This particular site is 15 acres. It's in prime location in downtown Mississauga. The vision at the time when he bought it, after all the rest of the land holdings were sold off, was to put his telecommunications equipment on it for radio transmission broadcasting. And then along came the CN Tower and made that idea obsolete. And so it sat vacant for a number of years, just with a fence around it, and let the grass grow. And when I joined the Rogers family about 10 years ago, this was one of the first things that they asked me to look at. And
so it's been a long time in planning.
Yeah, about 7 years in actual active planning to develop the master plan for the community.
Excellent. That's really exciting. So you mentioned master plan communities, and for us, when we're working with investors especially, we love it when they buy early into a master plan community. You get the natural growth as the project grows out. But we've seen time and time again these communities fail because they build the condominiums, but they don't build the other infrastructure to support the condominium. They don't build the retail. They don't build the ground level. Mm-hmm. I guess one of the big questions here is how much thought has gone into that side of the overall plan?
Yeah, I think, we set out to design a community. We didn't set out to design a building, so that's the first thing. And we started with one of the top urban design firms in North America, Cooper Robertson out of New York.
Yeah.
And we worked with Cooper Robertson to figure out how to make all the fine-grained details of a master plan community work as the best way possible. So we have a 2-acre central park, buildings around the park. We have a very pedestrian-friendly street environment. We've thought carefully about how people flow through the community, how the retail works with the community, where it's centered, and what locations in the community it'll be located. First phase building does have 30,000 square feet of retail. So we've thought a lot about how the towers actually come to grade and what happens at the pedestrian level. And a lot of projects, you're right, master plan projects have failed to really do a very good job of that.
They have a lot of dry cleaners, but not an awful lot.
Right. So,
it almost feels like you've sort of planned the entire neighborhood around the ground level. Like you mentioned, you put a lot of thought into how this all interplays, and I think that's very, very important. Yes. It's almost like a community within the bigger downtown.
That's right. It's a city within a city.
Excellent.
M City.
Yeah, great. Speaking of the bigger area, what do you guys see as the future in this downtown corridor?
Well, Mississauga is really maturing quickly as a downtown, as an urban center. We think this is going to be a central component of the overall growth and development of downtown Mississauga. It's located a very short walk to the new LRT line.
Yeah.
So I think what you're going to see with Mississauga as it continues to grow is that development will feed upon itself. Once there's a bigger density of population in the area, you'll see more retail services come to the communities like this. You'll see actually more office development occur as well.
For sure.
So it feeds on itself, much like it has happened in downtown Toronto.
For sure.
And so you're going to end up with a very vibrant community that's going to develop over time. And this is center ice right in the middle of it. So this will be a very big component of the future of Mississauga.
Definitely. It's hard to talk about M City without talking about the architecture. The renderings that we've seen so far, there's been a lot of talk about why don't we see this kind of architecture in downtown Toronto, especially. So Mississauga is sort of interesting where there's a very high bar set with Absolute, But outside of the Absolute, there's nothing in there that sort of really turns heads. And where Absolute is incredible on one side in terms of exterior architecture, that where they sort of fell flat a little bit was on the interior, where they sacrificed floor plans for the silhouette. Whereas here we've got both the silhouette while maintaining the square plate, which is going to give us great floor plans, functional floor plans. So I just wanted to talk to you about, in terms of the architecture, does that play into the history of the site, where you guys want to leave a legacy with?
Yes, it's a very special site, and this is really the western entry point to downtown Mississauga. So we very much viewed this in that light and wanted to create something iconic that complemented the eastern entryway, which has basically been defined as the Maryland Monroe Towers.
For sure, yeah, excellent. Actually, so Rogers Communication own the land.
The Rogers private company.
Sorry.
Yes.
The private companies own the land, and Urban Capital have been brought on to develop the buildings.
Yes.
Urban Capital, we've worked with Urban Capital for many years, and one of the things that they do exceptionally well is high design buildings that stand out. We talk about River City Phase 1, 2, and 3, and the new one, Phase 4, coming up. Almost every building that they bring to the table is different from the rest of the crowd. Now, when you guys were thinking about this, and it almost seems like a perfect marriage of your vision of what you want to do here and what Urban Capital bring to the table. Was that by design, or was it?
That was by design, yes. Mark and I have worked extensively in the past. Not most recently until when I asked him to do this project, to help with this project for the Rogers family. But I'm well aware of his unique skills that he brings to the table, and that's why his firm was chosen to help us with the development.
Excellent. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk specifically about this condominium, M City. Give us the overall rundown: height, number of suites, any interesting amenities, anything about the building that you can share.
Want to speak to that, Mark?
Sure. Well, it's a 60-story tower, so it will be the tallest building in Mississauga. That's the first thing we set out to do. Highly iconic building. Again, we were trying to bookend what Maryland has done on the other side of downtown, so we want to be equally iconic with this building here. Rectangular floor plate, again, creates, as you pointed out, terrific floor plans.
Probably one of the most important things these days.
The most important. You don't want to end up with the curvilinear building that creates inefficient floor plans. So
Absolutely.
When we set out to design this, that was one of the first things we wanted to do, have a very efficient floor plan. The building sits on a 5-story podium, which accommodates, amongst other things, some of the amenity space for the building, mostly amenity space. We have some unique outdoor amenities here, including a seasonal skating rink.
Skating rink?
Skating rink, yeah. So that'll be open in the winter, and in the summer we have an outdoor pool as well.
Wow, that's excellent.
Kids splash pad area, there'll be outdoor play area, barbecue area, and then inside we'll have the conventional multi-purpose party room spaces, plus a theater and gymnasium. So there's a terrific amenity package for this building.
Excellent. In terms of suite sizes and suite mix,
we have a range of suites from 1 to 3 bedrooms, probably mostly in the 1.5 to 2 bedroom size range in terms of the mix of suites we have, but we do have some larger 3-bedroom suites as well that are coming along.
Excellent. We talked about the unique skills that Urban Capital bring to the table, but obviously Rogers have a lot of unique skills as well. And how are we leveraging the Rogers telecommunication within the building?
Well, we'll definitely be leveraging, the expertise of Rogers Communications within the building. So there'll be, we'll have fiber to the suite basically in this building. A lot of attention is being put on future-proofing the technology that goes into the building. Another unique feature in this building will be the use of the Rogers smart home monitoring.
Okay,
so there'll be some things that you can do on your smartphone, like maybe change the temperature in your suite or open your front door and those sorts of things.
Great.
We're looking at as well.
That's very good. We're getting really into the smart home. We're seeing a lot of pickup on that, so that's really exciting. Based on early indication on our end, we're seeing a lot of demand for this. There's a lot of buzz. Obviously, Rogers being involved in the site and the unique architecture, it's created this automatic buzz. For somebody who wants to get into the building and once they buy into the building, what are the steps they should take?
Well, first of all, they should call you.
I always like it when you guys say that.
Well, that will be largely the process. We haven't set out all the logistics yet, exactly how we're going to launch it, but it will be coming out later in March.
Okay, excellent.
It'll be obviously introduced by yourself and some of the other brokers in downtown.
Excellent. One of the questions we always like to ask and always like to end on is, what advice do you have for any first-time investor or young investor trying to get into the market? What advice would you give that young buyer?
Well, I can't think of a better place to start than in the first phase of a master plan
absolutely.
community with 10 buildings to come, because all ships rise with the tide.
Yeah.
And there will definitely be some price appreciation as we move through each subsequent phase. So I think this would be a great place for somebody to start.
Great. I want to thank you both very much for your time today.
Very welcome.
And we look very forward to working on M City Condos.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.